Before the story begins, if you enjoy intense HFY sci-fi stories where humanity surprises the galaxy in unexpected ways, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with your thoughts as the story unfolds. Your support helps bring more stories like this to life. The first sign that something had gone terribly wrong wasn't the silence on the battlefield. Silence was normal after a hunt. It was the scorched tree line, the melted stone, the smell of cauterized blood drifting through the broken jungle. Dr. Elias Kane slowed his steps and tightened his grip on the medical pack slung across his shoulder, every instinct he'd earned over 12 years of war whispering the same warning: leave. Across the galaxy, this moon had earned a single designation whispered in military briefings and mercenary bars alike: the nesting ground of a predator no confirmed kill record could claim. An organism so lethal that entire species had voted to glass worlds rather than face it planetside. Strike teams hunted it for glory, for bounties, for fear-driven necessity. None had returned intact. Elias hadn't come to hunt anything. He moved past the remains of alien armored suits split open as if peeled by invisible hands. The wounds weren't wild or wasteful. They were efficient, deliberate. The mark of something intelligent enough to choose how its enemies died. His medical training kept his breathing steady even as his pulse climbed. Panic never helped a patient. Fear never saved a life. Then he saw the blood. It wasn't the bright arterial red of most carbon-based life. It was darker, almost luminescent, soaking into cracked stone where something massive had collapsed. Elias froze, listening. No movement. No breath. Just the faint electrical hum of his scanner reacting to a life sign that should not have existed this close to death. The central conflict of his life arrived in one quiet moment. Protocol demanded immediate withdrawal and orbital sterilization. Survival demanded the same. But the oath branded into his bones didn't ask him to weigh odds or species. It only asked one question: is there someone bleeding in front of you? He followed the life sign. The predator lay half-hidden beneath fallen trees, its immense frame wrapped in torn plates of natural armor. One limb sagged unnaturally, fractured. Deep burns scarred its flank where energy weapons had finally done something no one believed possible. Its chest rose in shallow, irregular spasms. Each breath sounded like thunder grinding through ruined metal. Elias stopped at the edge of its reach. The creature's eyes opened. They were not empty. They were not mindless. They locked onto him with the sharp awareness of something that recognized danger, prey, and choice all at once. A single movement from those limbs could tear him apart faster than his nerves could register pain. Elias slowly raised both hands, open and empty, the universal human gesture of peace no matter how little the galaxy understood it. His weapon remained holstered. His medkit slid from his shoulder and hit the ground between them with a soft, human sound that felt absurdly small in the presence of something this lethal. "I'm a medic," Elias said quietly, knowing it wouldn't understand the words and understanding that didn't matter. Tone did. Intent did. "I'm not here to hurt you." The predator's breathing stuttered. Its claws flexed, carving furrows into stone, then went still. It didn't strike. It didn't retreat. It watched. Step by careful step, Elias approached, every sense screaming that he was making the final mistake of his life. He crouched near the wounded limb and forced himself to focus on anatomy instead of terror. Bone structure unfamiliar, but principles universal. Stabilize. Stop the bleeding. Prevent shock. His hands moved with practiced precision. The predator flinched once when he applied a sealant, a sound tearing from its throat that rattled the air. Elias didn't pull back. He spoke softly, the way he always did with patients who were afraid or in pain. He had soothed dying soldiers, alien refugees, beings who technically counted as enemies hours before. Fear responded to gentleness far more often than people admitted. Minutes stretched into something fragile and unreal. The predator did not attack. When Elias finished stabilizing the worst of the damage, his knees finally shook. He leaned back, breath unsteady, eyes never leaving the creature's face. The predator studied him with a gaze that felt uncomfortably like assessment, like calculation. Then something shifted. Not gratitude, Elias knew better than to project that, but recognition. It lowered its head. Not in surrender. In allowance. Elias swallowed. "You're going to live," he murmured, as much to himself as to the thing that should have killed him already. Against logic, against history, against the combined wisdom of every species that feared this creature, he had chosen mercy. Somewhere above the moon, scanners would soon light up. Ships would come. Hunters would follow rumors of blood and glory. They would see Elias Kane as reckless, naive, expendable. The predator did not see him that way. As Elias gathered his supplies, preparing to retreat before his luck failed entirely, a massive shadow shifted behind him. A presence rose, silent and controlled despite the wounds. He turned slowly, heart hammering, and met those eyes again at full height. The predator stepped aside, opening a path through the debris. Not attacking. Not fleeing. Allowing him to leave. Elias backed away, understanding settling heavily in his chest. This was no simple rescue. No momentary truce. Something ancient and dangerous had decided he was not a threat. And if the galaxy threatened him next, it might learn the difference between a hunter and a protector far too late. Elias did not leave the moon. He told himself it was medical logic rather than recklessness that made the decision. The predator's wounds were stabilized but not finished. Infection, shock, or internal failure could still claim it. Walking away after the first intervention would be cleaner, safer, and easier to explain. Walking away would also mean accepting that his choice to treat it had been little more than a delaying gesture before an inevitable, miserable death. Elias had never been good at abandoning patients once he'd started. By the time the jungle light shifted to a dim, coppery dusk, he had established a temporary shelter at the edge of a ravine, close enough to monitor the predator without cornering it. He worked silently, allowing his movements to speak for him. Every action was deliberate. No sudden turns. No raised voice. No display of fear he didn't feel. The predator watched him from within the trees, its presence felt even when it didn't move, like gravity itself had decided to lean in his direction. When it shifted closer, the ground reacted more than the air. Elias paused, hands resting in his lap, and waited. He had learned long ago that restraint could be louder than commands. The predator advanced to the edge of the clearing and stopped, its massive frame casting a shadow that swallowed the shelter's light. It studied him with unsettling precision, not hunger, not rage, but curiosity sharpened by caution. Elias spoke anyway. Words anchored him. "You should rest," he said quietly. "I did what I could out there, but you're not stable yet." Its eyes narrowed, pupils contracting in a way his scanner translated into heightened awareness. That alone told him more than any classification database ever had. It understood states of being. It understood vulnerability. And it understood him closely enough to evaluate his usefulness or threat. The second treatment took longer. Getting close again required patience measured in heartbeats rather than minutes. Elias advanced slowly, stopping whenever the predator tensed, retreating the instant its breathing deepened. They fell into a rhythm that had nothing to do with language. Permission granted. Permission accepted. Trust built not on hope but on consistency. The predator's wounds told the story its reputation had concealed. It had been outnumbered, outgunned, and targeted with weapons designed to rewrite anatomy. The damage wasn't random. It was the result of strategy. This thing was not merely hunted. It was feared enough that entire coalitions had planned for its death. Elias worked around scorched armor plates and embedded shrapnel, jaw tight as he neutralized toxins meant to stop regeneration entirely. When he applied the final sealant, the predator's breath steadied for the first time. Its posture lowered, tension bleeding from muscle and sinew. Elias felt the change immediately, the way medics always did when a patient crossed the invisible line from dying to surviving. Relief came sharp and unwelcome because it made everything else suddenly real. He stood and took a step back. The predator did not retreat. Instead, it shifted sideways, angling its body between Elias and the open jungle beyond the ravine. The movement was subtle, but the meaning was not. Elias stared at the altered geometry of the clearing, understanding settling slowly and uneasily. It had chosen a position that limited approach from the flanks. It had accounted for him. "You don't need to do that," Elias said, voice low, uncertain whether the words were for comfort or warning. The jungle answered him with distant thunder. Orbital disruption. Faint but unmistakable. Someone had begun scanning the moon. Elias felt the weight of consequence crash fully into place. His presence here, his choice to stay, his decision to heal what the galaxy wanted dead, had sent a signal whether he'd meant it to or not. Hunters would come. He had known that from the moment he knelt beside the bleeding predator. Knowing and facing were very different things. The predator's head lifted. It listened more deeply than Elias could, senses reaching far beyond human range. A low sound rolled through its chest, not a roar but a warning, restrained yet potent. Its gaze returned to Elias, sharp and charged. He met it without flinching. "I'm not leaving you," he said, surprised to find the words solid in his mouth. "I won't turn you into a weapon either. Whatever comes, I'll handle it." For the first time, the predator closed its eyes. Just for a moment. When they opened again, something in them had changed. Not softened. Focused. The jungle beyond the ravine grew quiet, as if the moon itself had decided to listen. Elias had the sudden, overwhelming sense that something ancient and deliberate had finished evaluating him, and rendered its decision. Elias moved back to his shelter and began reinforcing it, cataloging supplies, preparing for arrivals none of his medical training had equipped him to welcome. Behind him, unseen but unmistakably present, the predator settled into the shadows like a coiled storm. The galaxy was coming. And it would not find a monster guarding its territory, but a medic under protection. The first ship broke orbit like a blade slipping from its sheath. Elias felt it before his instruments confirmed it, a pressure in the air that had nothing to do with weather or fear. The scanners hissed to life, painting the sky with hostile silhouettes. One ship became 3, then 7, their hulls bristling with the unmistakable architecture of professional hunters. These were not panicked militias or desperate thrill-seekers. They moved with discipline born of long practice and longer kill records. "They're here for you," Elias murmured, not bothering to hide the truth. The predator did not move, but its attention sharpened. Elias sensed it in the way the jungle seemed to draw in around them, sounds dampened, motion stilled, the ecosystem instinctively recognizing that something was about to break. The creature's focus remained fixed not on the descending ships, but on Elias himself, as if measuring how the coming violence might disrupt him. The first landing party announced itself loudly, arrogance masquerading as authority. Their voices echoed through the ravine in clipped, translated bursts, demanding surrender, identification, compliance. Elias stepped out from the shelter before they could finish their threats, raising his hands in slow, deliberate arcs to show he carried nothing more dangerous than a medic's pack. "You're too late," he called back, keeping his voice level. "The target is wounded and under treatment. I'm a civilian medical contractor. I won't assist in its execution." A pause followed. Then laughter crackled through external speakers, distorted and dismissive. The leader emerged from the trilene armored head to toe, weapon trained casually on Elias's chest. Its species features were hidden behind polished plating, but its intent was not. "Step aside, human. Whatever mercy you think you've earned, it ends now." Elias did not move. "I treated a wounded being," he replied. "You don't get to rewrite that because it's inconvenient." The hunter tilted its head, assessing him the way hunters always did. Threat, asset, liability. Elias recognized the look. He'd seen it turned on enemy medics before, seen how quickly laws bent when profit sharpened its teeth. The air shifted as more troops fanned out, creating angles of fire that tracked Elias with mechanical patience. Behind him, something vast stirred. The predator did not reveal itself yet. It waited, reading the situation with predatory economy. Elias felt a dull, nauseating certainty settle in his gut. These hunters would not negotiate. They would remove obstacles, human or otherwise, and write the cost off as operational loss. If they advanced even one step further, the clearing would turn into a kill zone. The lead hunter made the decision for everyone. It lowered its weapon slightly, freeing one hand, and gestured forward. Two soldiers moved in unison, approaching Elias from either side, intent on securing him like cargo. "Do not touch me," Elias said quietly. They ignored him. The first hand closed around his arm. It never finished the motion. The predator unfolded from the jungle like night given mass. There was no roar of challenge, no wasted display. One moment the clearing held only tension, and the next it held impact. The hunter was gone, reduced to motion and memory in less time than Elias could process. The second soldier barely managed a startled vocalization before the ground erupted beneath them, claws piercing armor designed to stop artillery fire. Chaos exploded outward. Weapons discharged in blind panic, energy bolts tearing through foliage, cutting glowing scars into the ravine walls. The predator moved through it all with terrifying restraint, selecting targets with chilling discrimination. It did not attack the perimeter. It did not pursue retreating troops. It went only for those who had threatened Elias, those whose weapons had locked onto his body. Elias stood frozen, heart hammering, the medic in him cataloging damage even as the man struggled to comprehend survival. He should have been dead. He should have been collateral. Instead, an apex terror of the galaxy was orbiting him like a living shield. Within seconds the clearing fell silent. Bodies lay where intent had failed. The remaining hunters had retreated, dragging their wounded, broadcasting frantic warnings as they fled. No pursuit followed. The predator returned to Elias's side, its breathing controlled, posture low but ready. Its eyes flicked to him instantly, scanning for injury. "I'm unharmed," Elias said slowly, raising his hands again, this time in something like surrender. "You don't need to do that for me." The predator made a sound, quiet and resonant, that Elias felt rather than heard. Then, impossibly, it turned its attention outward, toward the sky where more ships had turned away mid-descent, reacting to the sudden loss of contact below. The message was unmistakable. Elias knelt, the delayed tremor finally catching up to his muscles. His life had just been saved by something he had chosen to see as a patient rather than a monster. The galaxy would not forgive that choice easily. Already, comm channels ignited with rumors, half-baked intelligence, fear spreading faster than truth ever did. A human medic had interfered with the hunt. And the predator had responded. As Elias rose, meeting those ancient eyes again, he understood the shape of what was coming. This was no longer about mercy in a ravine. It was about consequence written across star charts. The hunters would return. Not in squads but in fleets. And next time they would not settle for threats. The galaxy reacted faster than Elias had expected and slower than he had feared. Within a standard day, the ravine became the center of every major transmission corridor. Ships began to lurk just outside sensor range, careful not to provoke another massacre. Long-range probes probed and vanished. Threats arrived first, cloaked in official phrasing and legal authority, then stripped bare into ultimatums when Elias refused to respond. Surrender the predator. Withdraw from the region. Accept relocation for your own safety. Elias ignored them all. He moved through his routines with deliberate calm, checking the predator's healing progress, adjusting stabilizers, rationing supplies. The creature remained close, always positioned between him and the sky. It rested when he slept, rose when he rose, and tracked movement with relentless attention. Whatever injury had slowed it before was fading, muscle knitting back together with alarming efficiency. The second attack did not come from the sky. A stealth insertion team breached the ravine at night, dropping soundlessly through the canopy. Elias sensed them only because the predator rose before the alarms could trigger, its body shifting like a continent waking from sleep. Elias barely had time to reach for his medkit before the jungle screamed. The predator did not charge blindly. It waited until Elias was behind stone, then moved with surgical precision. There were no explosions this time. No grand display. Only sudden, fatal silence where armed figures had been seconds before. Elias watched the aftermath with a tightening chest, realizing that restraint was not mercy. It was method. When the clearing was secure again, Elias stepped forward, shaking. "This can't keep happening," he said aloud. "If you keep killing them for me, they'll never stop coming." The predator turned its head toward him, blood slicking one claw. It studied his face as attentively as it studied threats, reading his distress with unsettling accuracy. Slowly, deliberately, it withdrew from the bodies and lowered itself to the ground, folding its massive frame until it was almost still. It was listening. Elias swallowed and took a step closer. "They're afraid of you," he continued. "And now they're afraid of what you'll do for me. That fear will spiral." The predator huffed softly, not in disagreement but in acknowledgement. It raised its head and gazed toward the stars, where ships held position like predators of their own. Elias felt the weight of interstellar attention press down on him. Every decision he made now would echo outward, defining not just himself but the story the galaxy told about humanity. The next threat arrived wrapped in diplomacy. A cruiser bearing Galactic Council markings dropped into high orbit, broadcasting formal summons. Elias laughed once, hollow and strained, then answered honestly. He would not abandon a patient. He would not assist in its exploitation or execution. If they wanted him, they would have to come to the surface and look him in the eyes. They did not. Instead, the Council issued a classified directive circulated to all member states. The wording leaked within minutes. Elias read it in stunned silence. Non-lethal containment of the human medic. Elimination authorized if containment fails. The predator felt the shift in him immediately. Its posture tightened, energy building like a held breath. It did not need the transmission translated. It understood intent as well as Elias did. "No," Elias said firmly, stepping into its space before it could act. "You can't answer that with violence. That's what they're expecting." The predator froze, claws half extended, eyes locked on Elias. The moment stretched, fragile and absolute. Elias held his ground, though every survival instinct begged him to retreat. "They want me isolated," he said. "Turned into leverage. If you attack them now, you prove their fear right." The predator lowered its limbs, muscles unclenching by degrees. Not obedience. Just. Days passed under siege that never fully arrived. Ships lurked but did not strike. Probes observed but did not descend. Across the galaxy, reports accumulated, contradictory and desperate. The apex predator was not rampaging. It was not fleeing. It was guarding one human and ignoring everything else. That detail unsettled every strategist who read it. Elias knew the stalemate could not hold. Eventually, someone would miscalculate. Someone would decide that killing him was cheaper than understanding him. He prepared for that moment with the same resolve he brought to every emergency, knowing that preparation did not guarantee survival. On the fourth night, he stood at the edge of the ravine, staring up at the stars. "If I die," he said quietly, "you don't have to finish this." The predator moved beside him, immense and silent. It did not look at the sky. It looked at Elias, eyes steady and unblinking. And in that gaze was certainty. Not of loss. Of purpose. Elias exhaled slowly, the truth settling into him with equal parts awe and dread. Whether he liked it or not, he was no longer merely a medic caught in a storm. He was the axis around which something ancient now turned. And the galaxy had not yet grasped what it meant to threaten the one person that Predator had chosen to protect. Elias knew the Council would not wait forever. The hum of distant engines and the soft crackle of encrypted comms told him that fleets were assembling beyond sensor range, waiting for the inevitable failure. The galaxy assumed it could dictate terms. It assumed a human medic could be isolated, neutralized, or coerced. It had underestimated the calculus that only Elias, and now the Predator, understood. He walked to the edge of the ravine, his medkit slung across his shoulder, his gaze tracing the treeline where the Predator waited, massive and unreadable. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "This ends now. You follow my lead, not instinct. You only act if I am in immediate danger. Understood?" The creature lowered its massive head and blinked once, a subtle acknowledgement. Elias exhaled. This was the first moment he had felt anything approaching control since he had treated the Predator's wounds. The Council emissaries arrived in full display, ships bearing the authority of dozens of worlds. Their flagship hovered above the ravine like a judgment in motion, scanning beams piercing the canopy, sensors sifting for life, weapons primed. Elias did not flinch. He stepped forward into the clearing, unarmed, exposed, A single human standing between an apex predator and a fleet of the galaxy's most disciplined warriors. Dr. Kane, the council representative's voice boomed through translation arrays. You are in violation of interstellar protocols. You have harbored a dangerous entity, and we demand immediate compliance. Surrender the predator or we will remove it, and you by force. Elias paused, letting the weight of silence press before he responded. I am a medic, he said evenly. My job is to preserve life. I have done nothing but that. You see a threat where none exists because you do not understand what it means to be human. Compassion is not weakness. It is a strategy. One you cannot measure, cannot predict, and cannot control. The fleet hesitated. Sensors registered anomalies in predator behavior. Movements that defied expectations, patterns inconsistent with known apex hunting instincts. Elias watched the hesitation grow into confusion, the galactic confidence cracking as the predator stepped from the trilene, its massive form cutting a line between him and the emissaries. It did not roar. It did not charge. It did not attack. It simply positioned itself to guard, claws digging into the stone, eyes locking on every ship that threatened him. A council envoy broke the stalemate, issuing a command to fire. The first pulse cannon ignited, a beam of concentrated energy slicing through the evening sky. The predator moved faster than thought possible, intercepting the attack with a sweeping motion that redirected the energy harmlessly into the ground. Debris flew. Sensors overloaded. The remaining fleet recoiled. Elias stepped forward. Do not fire. You have no idea what you are facing. Threaten me and you threaten something the galaxy cannot contain. Listen carefully, I am the only thing standing between your fleet and total failure. The predator's eyes flicked to him, not for instruction but for confirmation. Elias raised a hand. That was all it took. The council's fleet froze as the predator began demonstrating capabilities no recorded data had predicted. Precision strikes that disabled weapons without harming vessels, strategic placement that neutralized boarding parties, calculated intimidation that forced retreat without unnecessary destruction. Every move made it clear. It was not the galaxy's apex predator they faced. They were facing a sentient ally of a human being. Elias felt the tide shift. Years of experience, countless crises, and the endless study of human behavior had taught him that influence often mattered more than power. He raised his voice, calm, firm. I am human. I treat the injured, defend the helpless, and I choose who lives and who dies, but only in the context of preserving life, not for conquest. This creature protects me because I earned it, because I acted when no one else would. Any further aggression is not just a violation of law, it is an invitation for consequences you cannot imagine. A ripple of hesitation spread through the council ranks. Not disbelief but calculation. The predator had proven itself. Elias had proven himself. And in the center of that clearing, human and apex predator formed an unbreakable bond, one forged by ethics, courage, and survival. Minutes stretched into eternity. Then the council representative lowered their hand. We will not fire, they said finally. But you are reminded, this is your final warning. Any misstep and you will face consequences. Elias nodded once. The predator did not relax, but its posture softened slightly. It had understood the message. Humans were not to be prey or pawns, and the one it protected had made that clear. As the fleets withdrew, sensors dimming in the distance, Elias approached the predator. We did it, he said quietly. For now. The creature lowered its head, brushing against him gently, an acknowledgement of trust and choice. Elias knew this was not the end, only a reprieve. The galaxy would continue to test boundaries, to underestimate humans, to challenge compassion with aggression. But he had learned something far more important than survival. Morality, courage, and empathy were not weaknesses. They were weapons the galaxy had never anticipated. And as he stood there, the wind carrying the faint hum of retreating ships, Elias understood that the predator's loyalty was absolute, but not blind. It was a reflection of his own choices, a mirror of humanity at its best. Disciplined, deliberate, and unyielding when principles demanded it. He returned to his shelter, side by side with the apex predator, feeling the weight of inevitability and the thrill of triumph intertwine. The moon would remain quiet for now, the galaxy watching, and Elias Kane knew, with clarity sharpened by fire and blood, that his role had changed forever. The Predator's gaze swept the horizon, alert, vigilant, yet calm. Elias placed a hand on its massive flank, feeling muscle knit and armor scarring, knowing that together they had rewritten the rules. Not with domination but with understanding. Not with fear but with choice. And the galaxy, for all its ambition, had no answer for that. The wind carried a faint promise of storms to come, but Elias no longer feared them. He had faced the impossible and emerged not unscathed but undefeated. And in the eyes of the Predator, he saw the reflection of a future the galaxy would never forget.